what are his options. Joining me now from Capitol Hill is Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He is a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. What do you think the president might propose when it comes to Syria, Congressman?
I think probably in the very least you'll see what happened a year ago. I think potentially you could see an even broader and more intense response. The Western world, and frankly civilization, has held since World War I that chemical weapons have no place on the battlefield. And we've enforced it multiple times. We take great efforts to ensure that that's the case. If we allow Russia and Syria and Iran to get away with this chemical weapon attack, then by definition we will have gotten rid of the non-proliferation of chemical weapons that we all agree is important, because we would allow it to go unpunished. So a strike against Syria would have one purpose, and that is to make the cost of the use of chemical weapons far exceed any benefit that can be gained by it, to send a very strong message.
Okay, so today we had Prime Minister Theresa May on the phone with President Macron of France, President Trump of the United States. They all agreed that they need to put an end to chemical weapons attacks, but I don't really know what that means, given that this time a year ago the US did launch a strike against President Assad's regime, and look what's happened. We've had at least one reported chemical attack since then.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think it's obvious that the regime feels emboldened by the presence of Russia, by the presence of Iran. So we have a couple of options here. We can do nothing, which would guarantee that there would be further chemical weapons attacks, or we can make strikes against the Syrian regime and make it clear that you may have killed 40 of your enemies, actually most of which were civilians. You may have had a psychological impact on your opponents, but congratulations, you just lost most of your Air Force. Or congratulations, you just lost a significant amount of your command and control. And so eventually the calculation by Bashar al-Assad, by the Russians and by Iran, is going to be that the use of chemical weapons is actually costing us a whole lot more than we gain by it. And that's what the Western world has to hold to. It doesn't mean we're intervening like in Iraq. It doesn't mean there's 200,000 American troops going to Syria. But it does mean that the Western world has got to hold firm to this principle, or we're going to see more and more of these ghastly attacks.
Let's talk about the Air Force specifically. Last year, I think the coalition took out a fifth of the Syrian Air Force. How feasible would it be now to take out the remaining 4/5?
I think it'd be very feasible. You take out both their fixed-wing assets. You can do that by actually striking the aircraft or destroying the runway. Runways can be repaired, though, so that needs to be kept in mind. Taking out their helicopters, although helicopters can be harder to find than fixed-wing assets, but the helicopters are basically the ones delivering these barrel bombs. So eliminating the infrastructure Assad has, maybe some of his command and control in Damascus, eliminating his infrastructure to be able to carry out these attacks, and just to make it clear that the cost is going to far exceed any benefit you gain.
Congressman, would you urge the president to target President Assad himself?
It's a very big question. I would love to see Assad die or go. I actually think that his presence has led to even more chaos right now in Syria, but I don't expect that that's going to be a move of this administration or of a British-French-American alliance to go after Assad. I think we're going to go after his infrastructure.
Okay. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thanks very much for joining me.